Classroom management is a tough job, and like any other aspect of our work with children, we have to take the time to self-reflect on our practice. Today, I'm going to talk about responsive versus reactive classroom management. First, let's define those terms. According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, responsive is quick to respond or react appropriately or sympathetically. Reactive is readily responsive to a stimulus or occurring as a result of stress or emotional upset. Let's start with reactive classroom management. This is where our responses can typically be knee-jerk reaction, and they're rooted in the adult feeling perhaps offended or insulted. Example, a child's noncompliance. They can be rooted in an adult not using an optimum level of patience. An example, child trips over someone's work for the third time that morning because they still aren't looking where they're going. They can be rooted in our frustration. An example, we feel like there's nothing we can do to support a child to stop being so disruptive. They can be rooted in fear. An example, a child is physically aggressive with another and someone gets hurt. So our decisions for discipline or redirection can be hasty because they're rooted in an emotional response. Let's talk about responsive classroom management. And this is when our reactions are more thoughtful and empathetic. We're looking at the child's behavior to tell us what developmental needs are not being met. And we can't punish them for that. It's our job to make those connections so those needs are satisfied. An example would be a child who fidgets. They need to expend energy. Get them outside for a run. Or a child that talks so much they're disturbing other children. Well, they have a need to communicate, so we've got to come up with an experience for that to be done in a more productive manner. Children's behavior also tells us what skills they don't have yet, and these are opportunities for us to help support the development of those skills. Think of social skills, maybe a child that can't wait their turn or has difficulty listening. Think of a child that frustrates every single day. Maybe they don't know how to ask for help. So these behavior cues that we're getting from the children let us know what developmentally they need or what skills we can support them in developing. What does responsive classroom management look like? Well, it starts with the child feeling like they are heard and understood. An example of this would be you have an upset child and you approach them. I see you're upset. What's wrong? They're going to tell you. You're going to repeat back what they say. What we're showing them is I understand your emotions and I hear what you say. Then it's our job to look at that and think about, is this a developmental need that's not being met or a skill that I can support the development of? And then you move forward. Responsive classroom management is rooted in this element of positive rephrasing. We can remind the child of the limits in the classroom, but we can do it in a positive way. Rather than saying, don't run, we walk in the classroom. Rather than saying, don't pull the flowers, we could possibly say, pull the weeds, leave the flowers to grow. This is kind, gentle, respectful, and over time, the children start to use it themselves. There's a technique that we use that's part of this responsive classroom management that's called gentling the violence. And you would use this when you have two children that are having an argument about something and they're very upset. You take them aside and put a hand on both of their shoulders. This is going to close the distance between them. You're going to let each of them talk without interruption until they're done. Let the first child talk, and when they stop, you'll ask them, is there anything more that you'd like to say? If the answer is no, then you move to the next child, and you repeat this back and forth for as long as they need. And quite often, the children will come to a resolution all by themselves through this peaceful conversation that you're supporting them with. Being proactive is an enormous part of responsive classroom management. This is the planning piece. It's not going to be long before you understand what points in the day your whole group is challenged by and what points in the day individual children are challenged by. and we can plan for these moments in time. I'm going to give you a few examples here. You may have a child that has difficulty transitioning from time to time in the day, maybe from work time to lunch, from lunch to recess, from recess inside. Lots of children struggle with this, and a help to them is planning to give them a 10-minute warning. And you can do this privately, 10 minutes before we clean up our lunch. Then you come back in 5 minutes, 5 minutes before we clean up our lunch. This helps them to start priming to get ready for the next activity. They will make the transition much more successfully just by you giving them a reminder. Group time can be very challenging for individual students. You can bring that student closer to you and use a little proximity to help them bring their body under control, or don't have them at group at all. Some children just can't sit at group without being disruptive, and it's because it's not aligning with them developmentally. And we can have a task for them to do during group time that's going to be more positive and more productive for them. Always offer the opportunity for them to sit, but if they don't want to, have something ready for them. In my class, we would set up for lunch while I had a circle time, and the children who really had a hard time sitting for circle would go help set up the lunch, and they loved it. It was positive and a win-win for everyone. Waiting in line is one that is hard for every classroom. The easy fix to this is planning a song with movement. You get the children singing and coordinating their movement, you have united the mind and the body. There are elements of focus and concentration, and they are working as a collaborative group together. Problem solved. Playground can be tricky as well, especially if you have a very popular piece of playground equipment. Children are going to argue over who gets to go first and who gets to go next. You can plan for this. Plan a rotation schedule. Have the children help you work out who's going to go first that day and the next day. See, these examples are all elements you can plan for actively, and they are going to smooth out the wrinkles in your day. Responsive classroom management can be challenging, and it does take some thought, time, and planning, but it is so much more healthy for the children and for you.